So what exactly are CPN trade lines and should you be buying them? Hey y'all, my name is Tomy Boboy, your credit and personal finance coach. If this is your first time on my channel, I'd like to say welcome. On this channel, I'm typically going to be focusing on videos teaching you how to improve your credit, as well as how to plan out your financial future. So if that's something that interests you, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below so you don't miss any of my future videos. So let's go ahead and jump into the meat of the content. You know, a while back, I had someone come up to me and ask me about CPNs. They asked me, you know, they weren't sure whether they should be using it or not, and they wanted to kind of get my advice off of it. And to be quite honest, I didn't even know what CPNs were, right? I hadn't never heard that term before, and it didn't make sense to me much whenever they tried to explain it to me. I didn't understand the logic of it, right? What people were claiming, or at least the people who are selling it, what they claim is this is essentially like you're getting a new credit score. So it's almost like you're able to just replace your old, whatever your current credit profile is, with a completely different new one. And the way I was looking at it was kind of like, it's like if you're playing a video game and you see that you're starting to lose and you decide that you want to hit the reset button, right? You just want to restart that whole level again. And so that's kind of how it was explained to me. And so I decided to dig a little deeper and see where this came from, how it got started, and how I had never heard of this. The more I was reading online, the more I was seeing that there's a lot of random people who are basically somehow getting these CPN numbers, and you would pay them a set amount of money and they would give you this number that you would just start using for your credit profile. Now, it sounded a little crazy to me, but I wanted to make sure to just keep an open mind. Now, the first thing I did was I started digging deeper into the research, right? I started looking around online and see what I could find. And that's when the first thing popped up to me. I realized that the majority of the people watching the video needed to hit the like button. That way we can make sure that the algorithms show this video to other people. Now all jokes aside, when I started digging a lot deeper, I started seeing that these CPNs, or what people call credit privacy numbers, was actually something that people were advertising as saying that this was something that celebrities were using. Right? Celebrities or any high government officials would be using these CPNs to hide their social security numbers. But as I started digging deeper and deeper, I saw that this was something that really you can't see any verifiable information, at least not from any government organizations, right? You know, considering that social security numbers are issued by the government, I would assume that I would see that same information on their website, kind of stating what you'd have to do to get these CPNs. So the question everybody has is it actually legal? Now, the short answer to that is actually no. Typically, whenever you're buying a CPN from somebody, it really is not coming from the government, right? It's not like they're getting it from the Social Security Administration or anything like that. Typically, those socials, or those CPNs as they're calling them, is just coming from three groups of people. Okay, the first group of people is going to be people who are extremely young. So what you want to think of is, for example, someone who's a kid, or basically someone who's below 18 years old, right? That haven't really started their credit profiles or don't really maintain or monitor it at all. That's going to be the first group of people. So the second group of people is going to be people who are old. So typically people who are retired, or maybe, let's say, for example, they're in the 80s or 90s, they at this point have settled, right? They're not looking to get more credit because they're at a point in their lives where they're retired, right? They're just relaxing. They're not looking to get a loan, a mortgage on a new house, or get a mortgage on a car, or get an auto loan or anything like that. They're more so settled. And the third group of people is going to be people who are in jail, right? People who are incarcerated. The reason why is because a lot of those guys, when you're going to jail, let's say you're in jail for 4 or 5 years, the last priority that you have in your mind is making sure that you're monitoring your credit while you're in jail. So typically what happens is the person that you're buying CPNs from, or the person advertising CPNs, is actually typically buying it from somebody else. And that person is pretty much finding ways to generate all of these social security numbers. And once they validate that these are real social security numbers used by other people, then they're going to take that number and pass it on to you for you to be able to use as well. Now, I even decided to go as far as digging into it to see if there was any kind of public records about anyone being going to court for it, or anyone being, for example, indicted on any type of charges when it came to using these socials. And after a quick Google search, it actually wasn't hard to be able to find examples of people who had actually started getting in trouble for using CPNs. Now, one of the first ladies that I found was a lady who actually was in my hometown, right? She actually lives in Dallas Fort Worth area in Texas, and she was actually sold CPNs as what would be a quick fix for her bad credit. Now, the issue came in is as soon as she got that CPN, she started trying to use it for different applications. I believe she used it for an auto loan, and then she even got a credit card from it. Now, after a couple weeks or a couple months, then what ended up happening is federal agents ended up even showing up to her place of work, and they ended up taking her downtown and questioning her to figure out why she was using a fake social security number and what was going on, things like that. From doing further analysis, what I've realized is a lot of people don't realize that this was actually fraud, right? This is completely illegal. It's considered fraud whenever you're misrepresenting your social security number on actual bank documents, right? So she actually ended up being taken downtown, and luckily she was just questioned and wasn't charged with anything, though there was a potential for her to face up to 30 years in prison. That's why I want to tell you guys, be very, very, very careful when you're talking with people about CPNs, because they're always going to paint this rosy picture that CPNs aren't bad at all and that it's perfectly fine for you to use a number other than your social on any type of bank forms and when you're applying for credit, but that is actually considered fraud. So a lot of these companies can actually decide to come after you and even report you to federal bureaus, so they can actually come after you as well. Now, after seeing exactly what had happened with Swatisha's case, who I just showed you guys earlier, I was kind of curious to see, was there any kind of repercussions, or was anything happening with people who were actually offering the CPNs? So I started looking a little deeper, and it didn't take me long to find again somebody else who had actually gotten arrested for giving out CPNs this time. So I found someone who was actually in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, who had a business of finding CPNs and then selling it to other people who had bad credit and wanted to find a quick way for them to improve their credit scores. Now, the article that I found was breaking it down, explaining that he had at this point scammed well over 300 people, giving them these CPNs, and had caused over $5 million in damages and fraud to different lenders. And to make matters even worse for Mr. Batiste, he was now being pursued by the Attorney General's office. So needless to say, it was probably not going to end well for him. Unfortunately, after reading that article, all it really told me was that he was facing a potential 75 years in jail, but I never saw a resolution on it about how it all ended up playing out. So I decided to dig even deeper and see what else we could find. And after just a few more clicks and a few more hits on my keyboard, I found another article from Mr. Batiste. And this time, this article was talking about how he had ended up getting probation, right? They gave him probation. From the article, it didn't seem like he served any jail time, but the issue was Mr. Batiste decided that he was going to sell CPNs again. Now, what ended up happening is the judge ended up revoking his probation, and he is now having to serve, he's now serving 10 years in jail, soon to be released in 2029. So with that, I was able to see both sides of the story, right? To see what would happen on both sides if you were either selling CPNs or if you were just trying to buy CPNs. Now, from what I saw, it kind of goes to show that CPNs are completely illegal. I saw two different instances where, and this is just from about 1 to 2 minutes of searching, two different instances where someone was getting federal charges put on them on both sides. And it just kind of showed me that it just wasn't worth it for you to go to that risk just to have a clean credit profile that wasn't going to last you longer than what seemed a couple months, if a year at most. So it goes without question to say that CPNs are illegal, and it's best for you to just improve your credit or fix your credit on your own. So be sure to give this video a like if you found this information helpful, and make sure you hit the subscribe button down below if you haven't already. Also, I went ahead and linked down below my 30-day quick boost credit guide that's going to show you how to improve your credit within 30 days by just following key steps. And the great thing about it is it's perfectly legal. Got him! So go ahead and click that button down below. That way you can get your copy as well. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for this video. I'll see you at the next one.